Welcome to Money Summit. My name is John Ogden, and this is Joe Sullivan, CEO of Market Insights. Welcome, Joe.
John, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah. First, we'd like to talk about the past 10 years and what has changed that in the financial industry in terms of digital marketing.
Well, I think obviously what has changed, number one, I think, is the consumer's increased intolerance for marketing messages. And I think that when you asked me that question, I thought that's the first thing that comes to mind. Any one of us is in message overload, and we're tired of messages. And also what we're seeing is the complete shift away from traditional marketing. And obviously we know digital is growing, but all the traditional things that banks and credit unions that they're spending their money on, like newspaper and print advertising and billboards, that stuff is increasingly less effective. And I think the third thing is we've seen the regulatory environment change, which is demanding that these institutions spend time and money out of their budget on things that they would prefer not to. But the core thing that has to be addressed even in digital is the change in tolerance that we as consumers have to marketing messages. You do it alone. You probably tune out any message on TV when the advertisements come on, right?
Definitely.
So I think that's the biggest shift that I see in the last 10 years.
That's fascinating. Maybe we can drill down just a little bit into that question. So what should a financial institution do to kind of navigate that problem?
Well, now I'm not sure if you saw the session I did yesterday on guerrilla marketing, and we can get into this in some of the later questions as well, but they have got to tap into consumer emotion, and they've got to be, presenting something, whether it's content marketing or whatever, that is of more value so people listen. So I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Let's circle back to that.
Okay, all right.
So the next question is, and maybe this will be part of the answer, what is the biggest thing when it comes to marketing that banks and credit unions should be doing that they're typically not doing?
And it circles back exactly to what we just talked about. There is this shift that must take place, and going from bank and credit union centric messaging to customer centric messaging. And so I call it the big pivot. And what has to happen in marketing and messaging, and it's happened in other industries quicker than it's happened in financial services, is you've got to make it about the customer. So I'm going to say customer and member interchangeably here, and I figure the audience can go with that. That's the big thing that must happen, is that we've got to make it about you, the consumer. Instead of, thank goodness we've moved past now Bauer 5-star ratings and all of that stuff. But if you look at advertising and marketing, look at 5 or 10 banks and credit unions out there, and what you're going to see is they're talking generally somewhere about themselves and not the consumer. So that's the big shift that has to happen.
That's interesting. So let's talk about an example of that. Who's a financial institution that is doing it well, or just any example, I guess, that you've seen make this transition?
Now, I talked a lot about it yesterday, but we cannot deny the success that TD Bank is doing. They are making it about the customer. They are gaining emotional traction with the customer. They are saying, I hear you, I recognize what is important to you, their automated thank you machines and all those other things. But they are letting you know as a consumer, through gifts, through outreach, that they get who you are, and I think they're a really good example. And there's a lot of, there's other examples that are companies that are good at using data, but immediately what I thought of was TD because of that. They're targeting to a mindset. They're targeting for how people feel. We can less target now based on a demographic bucket. We have to target based on how people feel. And whether they're disgruntled with their financial institution, whether they feel like they've been left behind because of the economy. So this is where emotional traction comes into it.
So you might even build a segment around satisfied, disgruntled. Is that what you're saying?
That's oversimplifying, but yes. But it is saying, I'm going to target how you feel. Because if I target how you feel, feelings are facts. FACTS, and if you tap into that, that's where people buy, whether it's a house, a car, or whatever, and financial institutions are not doing that as effectively as some other global brands are doing.
Interesting. What other emotions would you pinpoint?
Gratitude. We're going to help you through your financial struggles. We're going to help you get to the other side. A lot of our work in the upper Midwest has been with financial institutions in dying or decaying towns, and the customers that live in those towns have not participated in the economic recovery post-recession as somebody, say, in Austin, Texas has.
So perhaps desperate.
Not even that far, but like we understand your financial pain, and together, our financial institution and you will work together to help you rebuild your finances, to rebuild your credit score, to help you dig out of debt, whatever it is. And so those are helpful things that a financial institution can do to be a working partner with the customer.
Yeah. Now, last one sounds a little bit like empathy. Is that where you?
Somewhat. Sure.
Like we're in the same state. We really feel where you are. You know.
You know, the best example I can give you is we did do a project in Indiana where I referenced them, but not by name yesterday. They their clients were decimated by the financial crisis. You know, they lost their houses, all that kind of stuff. And what this bank did is really say, we feel that, we get that, and together we're going to work with you to rebuild. Metaphorically and physically.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about market insights then.
Okay.
Since you mentioned that project, what other notable projects or just general help do you provide?
We, at the most core level, we help our bank and credit union clients understand the market. So demographics, psychographic data, segmentation, product behavior. We help them get a clear picture as to the market and then set out a strategy, whether it's what to do with their branch network that no one goes into anymore, and do they need to reposition it or close branches or consolidate, to developing a marketing strategy that is related to the segments that they can really be successful with, to branding, to strategic planning, but all of it is we give them the data and the research and the strategic support to lay out their options and work with them so they make choices to realign their physical plant, their processes, their products, their people, to fit with where the world is headed, not where it's been.
Okay, that's great.
So data-driven, strategic support.
Let's end with a question about fintech companies.
Okay.
What should banks do about fintech companies?
They should embrace it and say thank you. And I gave a speech recently, the one I mentioned to you, and you know, there's all this talk about should they partner, should they not, but look at it this way. At the most basic level, a fintech type company, what do they have in terms of advantages? They have innovation, they have a lack of legacy systems that they have to drag around and band-aid and do things with. They are quick to market, they can attract capital, all of that. What does the bank or credit union have? They have customers, loyalty, trust, the expertise dealing with the regulators, and those two things combined, like take consumer lending as an example. A lot of retail banks, if you're not one of the large money center banks, they say, can we even compete in this? Well, with some of the fintech solutions on the market and being created right now to bring and deliver a consumer loan to a customer for $7,000 that can be approved and funded within minutes on a mobile app. That's where the benefit of that, they can reduce their cost of competing in services that they said, ordinarily, we can't compete in that, it's too expensive for us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.